So let me tell you guys a little bit about the heart behind this. Every church will say it. We say it. Every church will tell you that they honestly are thankful for the volunteers. They're thankful because, they know that the church isn't built by them, but it's built by the volunteers. At least I hope that that's the way churches feel. But here at our church, you've heard us say it more than once before, but man, we honestly believe that our church isn't built on the talents of the few. By the few, I mean the people on stage, the people who lead, who have the title by their name. We believe our church isn't built on the talents of the few, but it's built on the sacrifice of the many. And so because we believe that, because we believe that, not just we say it, because we believe that, that's one of the reasons why we started Thrive, is because we want to invest in you as our volunteer, in you as our leader. We don't just want to use you, we want to invest in you. And so real quickly, can you guys do me a favor? Can you guys give yourselves a round of applause, because we're so thankful for you guys and what you guys do. So you guys really do help make us better. You guys really do help make COC what it is. And I love it. I love it that I told this story before, and I'll tell it again, is one of the churches that I used to work at, they had a woman who grew up in a Muslim home, Muslim background. She was from Afghanistan. And she came to the church that I used to work at in Oklahoma, and she would come again and again and again. And finally, she wanted to meet with the pastor. And so the pastor was like, this is kind of weird. Let me go ahead and just make sure there's somebody else in the room, because I don't know what this woman's going to try to pull. We knew, what kind of background she had. And then she told our pastor, she said, I just wanted you to know that I accepted Jesus in my heart. And it was so cool. And he's like, awesome. Thank you for telling me. And then so she went on to say to the pastor, she said, Pastor, but you've got to know. She goes, it just wasn't your sermons that touched my heart. She said, every time I step foot in your parking lot, from the parking lot all the way into the door, she said, all I encountered was love. And she said the parking lot team, the greeter team, the usher team, even as she walked through the halls and there were kids members there saying hi to her, every single volunteer who helped her, who waved hi to her, who welcomed her, she said all of it, she said, I just felt love. And then she said, so then when I listen to your sermon, she said, I have to know this God of love. And it was just a powerful moment, because in that moment, what she was saying was, yes, Jesus, let's take time to listen from the Lord real quickly. He's calling. In that moment, what she was saying was, listen, it's not just about the one, it's about the many. It's not just about the one, it's about the many. And so listen, you all are a part of that many. And I know that, what you do, AVL back there, kids ministry, youth ministry, greeting, ushering, working with, all things may seem small and insignificant, but man, but I've got to tell you, it goes back to that old Chinese proverb that even a single grain of rice can tip the scale. And every time you love somebody, you add and you add and you add, and eventually they'll tip the scales to hopefully one day accepting Jesus in their heart. And that's what you guys do. So that's why you guys are such a big deal. That's why you guys are the heroes. That's why you guys make COC what it is. Amen. So because of that, we started Thrive just because we want to invest more in you. And so today what's going to happen is you're going to hear, 3 different leadership nuggets that we'll have here. I'm excited because Sean is going to be speaking later on, Sean Zimmerman. And if you guys don't know who Sean Zimmerman is, his wife Tisha is our financial manager. Sean's worked with me in youth ministry before when I was a youth pastor here. But Sean also works for Amazon, and he is a really good leader. Leadership principles ooze out of this guy, out of all the training that he's received, but he's just that type of guy. And then so you're going to get a chance to hear from him later on. And then later on, obviously we'll take a couple breaks in between, but at the end of this thing, we'll all pray, we'll all dismiss, and we'll all break bread together in the house of Chick-fil-A upstairs, because Chick-fil-A is godly, amen? So anyway, so today, here's where we want to start. Today we want to start here. I want to talk to you today on the topic of 4 traits of the emotionally unhealthy leader. 4 traits of the emotionally unhealthy leader. And the reason I want to start with this topic is because listen, we can talk about leadership principles all day long. We can talk about healthy teams all day long. But listen, if we're not healthy ourselves first, if our home isn't healthy, if our heart isn't healthy, then listen, guys, it all counts for nothing. If we're not healthy first, it all counts for nothing. And then so that's why I want to go over this, because, even what Paul said in 1 Corinthians, if I could speak with the tongues of men and of angels but have not love, right? If the inside isn't there, then it's all worth nothing. And then so I want to talk to us about this because here's the thing is I believe this. I believe there are a lot of good people here that we want to do and to do and to do. We want to give, we want to serve, we want to give and to serve. But listen, just because you're doing and serving and giving doesn't mean you're healthy. Can I just say that? Just because you look healthy doesn't mean you're healthy, right? Like, like I know this guy, he's all like blocked up, like he just ripped. But he went to the doctor the other day, and then the doctor said, listen, you've got to watch what you eat because like he said, like your cholesterol level is high. And then the dude was like, but doc, like I'm healthy. Like you see me healthy. He goes, listen, just because you look blocked on the outside doesn't mean you're healthy on the inside. And he said, if you don't take care of the inside, you're going to have a heart attack. And all that, he said, is for nothing. And then so listen, I don't want you guys to have a heart attack. I want you guys to be healthy outside and inside. And so let's go ahead and let's talk about this, the emotionally unhealthy leader. So what I want to do is I want to have this first part, I want to have a little bit of interaction with you guys. When you hear the word emotionally unhealthy leader, right? When you think of an emotionally unhealthy leader, let's talk real quickly. What are some traits or what are some characteristics that come to your mind in terms of an emotionally unhealthy leader? Passive aggressive. Yep. Everybody agree with that one? I agree. Yep. You said hangry? Angry. What else? Entitled. Ooh, yep. Mm-hmm. What else do you guys think? Passive aggressive, controlling, angry, entitled, selfish. That's all really good. Insecure. I heard authoritarian. Yeah, we can write that here under selfish. What are you saying, Lacey? Condescending, yep. Mm-hmm. That's a great list right there. How many of y'all would love to work for a boss like this? I was going to say, don't show your hands, but how many of you guys have worked for a boss like this? And if you're in the ministry, all right, so listen. Yeah, all these things right here add up to an emotionally unhealthy leader. You're right, like all these things are of that. But here's the thing, though, is that all these traits right here, let me tell you this, they're just symptoms. They're not the root cause. All this right here just lets you know that there's something going on underneath the surface. And so if you've ever felt passive aggressive, if you ever felt this, if you ever felt insecure, if you ever felt angry, like all of that, they're good, they're emotions, they're indicators, but they're not the cause of it. These are indicators, but they're not the root of what's going on. And so let me tell you real quickly, what are some of those four traits? So what are some of the four traits of I'm sorry, let me back it up real quickly before we talk about that. Let me tell you what the emotionally unhealthy leader is. The emotionally unhealthy leader is someone who operates, catch this, who operates in a continuous state of emotional and spiritual deficit. They constantly operate in a state of emotional and spiritual deficit, lacking in emotional maturity and a being with God sufficient to sustain their doing for God. They lack the skills or the capacity to enter deeply into the feelings and perspectives of other people. They are just condescending, angry, passive-aggressive, authoritarian, condescending, self-centered, selfish, and all of that. And so let's talk about why is that. Let's talk about the four traits of the emotionally unhealthy leader. Okay. So number one is this. Is they have a low self-awareness. They have low self-awareness. And what do I mean by self-awareness? You guys ever hear that phrase, metacognition? Metacognition is thinking about what you're thinking about. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm really, it's like the difference between I'm angry versus, wow, I realize I'm being angry right now. Like, what's going on inside of me? So metacognition is thinking about what you're thinking about. And so basically when you have a sense of low self-awareness, what happens is that you're passive-aggressive and you don't even know you're being passive-aggressive. You're angry and you don't even know that you're expressing anger. You're frustrated, you don't even know you're expressing frustration, right? Like how many of you guys ever been around a leader that was maybe passive-aggressive towards you or angry towards you or condescending towards you, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that really hurt. And then the next thing you know, you see them and hey man, how you doing? You doing okay though? You good? Yeah, what's up? Okay, awesome, great. And they act like nothing ever happened. You know why they do that? It's because they didn't think nothing ever happened. like, they weren't aware of how they affect other people. They're not aware of, the frustration that their comments make. They have a low sense of self-awareness. And then so, the thing about that too is that people with a sense of low self-awareness, they hardly ever take the time to process or to think through why do they feel what they feel. Like, have you guys ever been frustrated and you just going on in your frustration, and then somebody ever asks you, why are you frustrated? And you're like, I don't know. you ever get to that point where you're like, you just don't know. You don't know how to process it. And so listen, emotionally and healthy leaders, they've never taken the time to process through the frustration or the anxiety or the anger that they're feeling. They're not aware of how they impact and affect other people around them. And because of that, they just go through hammering and hammering and hammering, and they think everything is okay. But what happens is one day everybody leaves their team and they look around, they're like, what happened? Why did they leave? It's because they never took the time to realize the effect that they had on other people. They have a low sense of self-awareness. The second thing is this, the second trait of an emotionally healthy leader is this, is they prioritize ministry over marriage or singleness. They prioritize ministry over marriage or singleness. No matter the season, most emotional, healthy leaders affirm the importance of healthy intimacy with Christ, in relationships with their spouse, but also in relationships with other people. See, here's the thing, is that when I was single, right, or anyway, when I was in ministry, all I heard was, listen, when you're single, this is the time for you to go all out for Jesus. Go ahead and just stay up late at night, get up early in the morning, travel here, travel there. Like, go all out, man. Work for Jesus as hard as you can because you are single. And so listen, on the outside, that sounds good. It sounds good, right? Because you're like, yeah. They're not married, don't have any responsibilities. They can take time to do that. But listen, if you're single, if you're watching this in the future because we're recording this and you're single, I want you to know that is an unhealthy posture for you to take. And the reason is because of this. Because what you practice doesn't make perfect. What you practice makes permanent. So if you're practicing in your singleness now, if you're practicing draining yourself and staying out late and going all out and burning yourself out, what you're going to do is when you get married, you're still going to have those same habits. But what you need to do is while you're single, you need to practice the art of building community. You need to practice the art of building good and solid friendships. And so here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, is that in your singleness, your community is just as important as a married person's spouse and their family. If you're single, hear that? Let me say that again. I don't know how many of us here. But if you're single, here's the thing you got to know, is that your community is just as important to you as the married spouse's family is to them. Why? Because that is your relationships right there. And so let's switch over here to the married couple. Listen, married couples, let me tell you this. Your marriage is your number one ministry. It's your number one ministry. Your number one disciples, your spouse, and your children. I've heard it said once before that when I was training for ministry, one of my directors, he said this to me. He said, ministry will demand perfection out of you. It will never give you the room for error. It will demand you to serve and to serve and serve, but will never give you the time to have a life. And then when you're dead and gone, ministry will say nice words about you, turn around, take 2 steps, turn around and say, who's next? Are you sure you want to give your life towards ministry? And he said this, you've got to determine early on that you're not going to sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry. And so that's one of the reasons why, we'll get into it later on, but that's one of the reasons why I practice the Sabbath. You can email me, you can text me, you can call me, do whatever you want, but on my Sabbath, you're not going to get me because my kids get me. My wife gets me. Because you've got to understand that, listen, my marriage and my family, they're my number one ministry. So listen. I want you to serve. I want you to serve. I want you to give your heart. I want you to serve. Why? Because I believe in the church. We all believe in the church, but here's what we've got to understand. Listen, I do not want you to serve if you have an unhealthy marriage. I do not want you to serve if you need a break and you need to focus on your home. See, listen, don't export it before you import it. You've got to import it first. It's got to be inside of your heart. Because see, what a lot of people do when they preach the Bible, right, is This is my Bible, but I don't have the Pages Bible. But what they do is when they preach the Bible, what a lot of preachers, what a lot of pastors, what a lot of leaders will do, they'll rip out the pages and they'll say, I have a word for you, and I have a word for you, and I've got a word for you, right? And then they hand out all these words, they hand out all these literature principles. But here's the thing is that before you rip it out and hand it out, you've got to first rip it out and you've got to apply it to yourself first. It's got to come in here. You can't just give it out. And so you've got to prioritize marriage or your singleness over ministry. And I'll say this, you've got to prioritize your marriage or your singleness over the events that you guys do. See, some of you guys right here, you're not in ministry, but man, with all the different events that you guys have going on, your life is like a carousel going around and around and around. How do you have time to prioritize your marriage if you're running everywhere? And can I tell you this, all right? A lot of older people, what happens is, you guys ever hear of the empty nest syndrome, right? Y'all know, some of y'all been there. What happens is for so long, the husband and wife, all they do is they focus on the kids. So that way, by the time that the kids end up leaving, they end up looking at each other, the husband and the wife, and they don't know who each other is. Because all they've done is their schedule, their time, their energy, their thought have all gone towards the kids, that they don't know who each other is anymore. And so that's why a lot of times when the empty nest syndrome first kicks in, that's why it's so weird, awkward, and difficult, because you've made your kids your life instead of making your marriage your life. And here, let me tell you guys this, it's something that was ingrained in me before I even started dating and had kids, and it's something that my wife and I talked about. As much as we love our kids, at the end of the day, they're just long-term guests. Because they'll stay for 18, 19 years, and hopefully if I do it right, I will launch them off in a godly way when Sophie's 45 and she gets married, right? But one day I'll launch them off, and then all that's going to be left is just me and my wife all over again. So listen, can I tell you this? Regardless if it's ministry taking up your time, activities taking up your time, can I just urge you guys, focus on your family. Focus on your marriage. Because all those little things will drain the energy out of you. So that's trait number 2. Trait number 3 of the emotionally unhealthy leader is this, is they do more activity for God than their relationship with God can sustain. They do more activity for God than their relationship with God can sustain. All right, don't answer this question. But how do your Jesus times look? I'm not talking about Jesus times here at the altar. I'm talking about your Jesus times at home when no one else is looking. How do they look? See, when I was in Bible college, I was hit with the stat. It was a scary stat, and hopefully it's increased since then, but I fear it's decreased. But I was hit with the stat that the average pastor, so not even volunteer, the average pastor prays for about 3 minutes a day. And I was like, oh, you can't do that. And so listen, man, here's the thing is that if we're going to be people of God, listen, just because you serve in the church does not mean that you know Christ. Can I say that? See, a lot of people, they mistake being at the church, they mistake proximity for intimacy, but proximity is not the same as intimacy. I can you all day long and not get a chance to know you. And so listen, are you ministering out of the overflow of your heart? Are you ministering out of the overflow of your times with Jesus? Like if I were to ask you to be a greeter and smile and love, here's the thing, is that Tom from Gali, let me call him out real quickly. Tom, whenever he greets at the door, this guy is all smiles, greeting people, shaking hands. He has one of the firmest handshakes you ever had, and that he just loves on people. And here's what I know, without even knowing what Tom's time with Jesus looks like. Here's what I know. I know that Tom is ministering out of the overflow of his heart, because he just can't help it. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so listen, are you dead? Are you dry? Do you feel like you're dragging along in life? Listen, don't let your doing outdo your being. Because here's the thing, is that when Jesus created us, what are we? We're not human doing. We're human beings, right? And so our being with Jesus has to be more than our doing for him. Don't let your activity for God be greater than your relationship with God. It's kind of like the husband who all he does is buy his wife gifts, right? He's buys, and he wants to do this, do that. Why is it? Or I should say this, it's kind of like the father that all he does is love on his kids, buy them this, buy them that, sugar daddy, right? And what he's doing, he's trying to buy the affection of his kids when all his kids want is they want their time with their dad. And sometimes, guys, we're the opposite way, where all we do, we just keep doing for Jesus, when all Jesus says, listen, I just want you to come and be with me. But if you get nothing else out of any sessions, or at least out of my session, get that Jesus doesn't want you to do, he wants you to be. Because here's the thing, is that if you can be a child of God, if you can spend time with him, if you can overflow to him, everything else will take care of itself. Everything else will flow out of that. Thank you, Karl, so much for passing out those notes. And then the fourth trait of an emotionally unhealthy leader is this. And I might step on some toes, but it's okay, because it's what I do. Number 4 is this, is they lack a work/Sabbath rhythm. They lack a work/Sabbath rhythm. And so a couple weeks ago, I preached a message on the Sabbath. And I basically just laid out there that, listen, the Sabbath is not a suggestion, it is a commandment. And let me tell you about the consequences of us not obeying this commandment, right? Y'all remember that? The Sabbath? And so what's crazy is that, out of all the messages that I preached, it's been 3 or 4 weeks ago, man, I'm still hearing questions about what does the Sabbath look like? I don't get the Sabbath. My spouse wants to, but I don't, or vice versa. How do you flesh it out? What can you do? What can you not do? And so I'm hearing a lot of it. And so here's the thing, guys, is that the Sabbath, let me tell you this again, the Sabbath is a commandment. So a lot of times what we do is this is how the American culture does it, right? A lot of times what we do is we work for months, and then after that we vacation. Right? Vacation, awesome, vacation. All right, I'm in Cabo San Lucas, or I'm in Playa del Carmen, or wherever I go, right? We vacation for a little bit. And then after that, we work, and then we just keep on working. And here's the thing, is that I'll tell you this, right? Because I used to do this. When I get back from vacation, I need a vacation from my vacation, right? Because you go into it, you're so stressed out, so busy, you're like, okay, well, I'll rest on vacation. When you get to vacation, this is funny to me, is that people who go on vacation, they're posting all the time. They're like, oh, look at me, I'm by the beach. Oh, look at me, I'm by the pool. Look at me. And I'm like, bro, and then they're responding to DMs. I'm like, you're not even vacationing. Take a break. But then you vacation for a short time, and then after that, you get back, and you're still drained. You don't know why. You're like, oh, I wonder why I'm so drained. I just got back from vacation. I'm tan like Pastor Nate. I mean, I should be okay. And so you're wondering, what's going on? And then you hit the works, you hit the work cycle all over again. Let me tell you this. It's because because this right here, that's sporadic. That's not healthy. If I were to, watch this, if I were to eat unhealthy, but then do like a 5-day cleanse, oh, my body's good now. Now I can go back to eating junk. Does it work like that? It doesn't. No. Why? Because you need to feed your body consistency for it to be healthy. So how come we don't treat our souls like that? Our souls are the same exact way. That it needs a regular rhythm of work, Sabbath. And listen, God is a fan of work. Can I just tell you that right now? God is a fan of work. But he is a fan of work for 6 days because it is good. And then when it came to the 7th day, he didn't use the word good. He used the word holy, which means set apart. Why is that? You don't do the Sabbath for God. You do the Sabbath for you. I think you guys remember the story of the pastor. When I was doing my research, I came across this pastor, this well-known pastor, and he said, listen, I had this manic, crazy episode, and I had to go on sabbatical. My team sent me away. And then he said, finally, on the 52nd day, he was on this cruise, and then all of a sudden, this feeling swept over him. This feeling said, I'm back. I feel healthy again. And then he asked the Lord, he said, Lord, why do I feel like this? And he felt like the Lord had a conversation in his heart. You guys have been there before where you feel like the Lord's talking to you. And then he said, he felt like the Lord said, well, what day is it? Well, day 52. And then he said, when was the last day you took a day off? And then he said, I don't know, maybe a year ago? I don't know. And then he said, yes, it was a year ago. And he said, how many weekends are in a year? 52. He said, that's why you feel refreshed right now. Because you owed 52 weekends, 52 Sabbaths. And then this pastor said, Lord, I owed you 52 Sabbaths? And then the Lord said, you didn't owe me 52 Sabbaths. You owed yourself 52 Sabbaths. That's what you owed yourself. And now you're feeling the effects of it. Because it's a commandment. And every commandment comes with consequences and blessings. And he said, that's what it is. And so guys, listen. We need, I'm not going to ask who does it, but I'm just going to say, we need a work/Sabbath rhythm. You need that. And listen, I'm not just talking about you need that as in like it would be nice. No, you need it. You need it. Your marriage needs it. Your family needs it. You need it. Because here's the thing, is that I wonder, like, there are so many pastors who I met over the years, right? Being in Atlanta, getting a chance to know some pastors out there, being in Oklahoma. I've met so many pastors over the years that they've stepped out of ministry because they've burned out, because they just flamed out. And I wonder, would they have burned out if they would have taken just one day a week to say, I'm going to push everything else out. I'm going to push out, the noise, the emails, the social media, the demands. I'm going to push everything out. And for one day, I'm just going to focus on just resting and refreshing my soul. Just refreshing my soul. Why? Because you need a Sabbath rhythm. I didn't say this in my message, but it was one of the things that came up when I was studying it. But in Japan, there's this word. It's called karoshi. And this word karoshi, it recently just, how languages have been like hundreds of years old? Well, this word karoshi just recently came up. It was recently formed by the Japanese. And China has a word too, and I forget, there's another there place in Asia that has a word that they just made up. Well, basically it all means this. Karoshi means this. It means to be worked to death. Literally, to be worked to death. Because what happened was in Japan, Deb, maybe you can attest to this too, in Japan, nobody takes a day off. Like, it is frowned upon if you take a day off. It is, you feel deep shame if you take a day off. And so what happens is, though, what they started noticing was that they had these 34-year-olds, these 36-year-olds, they were dropping dead, literally in their workplaces, having heart attacks. And what they found out was they had a heart attack because of all the stress of always working. Like this one executive that they studied, in the study that I was reading, this one executive, they found out that he worked 120 hours during the week. Like, that's two and a half jobs, like right there. And they found him dead at his workstation in their company offices. And so they came up with this word karoshi because it's an epidemic that's starting to plague their system. And listen, they may have that word, but listen, it's prevalent here in America too. Man, we need a work/Sabbath rhythm. And so let me flip it, right? So what do you need then to be an emotionally healthy leader? What do you need? Let's flip it. Number one is this: is you need a healthy sense of self-awareness. You need a healthy sense of metacognition. So what does that mean? That means this: listen, don't just be frustrated, right? Ask yourself, what frustrates me? Don't just be anxious. Ask yourself, man, what's making me anxious? I feel anxious right now. Put it to words, right? Don't leave it unprocessed, but start processing it and asking yourself those questions. When you start feeling a certain way, take time, pause, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And then talk yourself through that. It's kind of like what Paul says in 2 Corinthians. He says, listen, I take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. What do you do when you take a thought captive? You interrogate it, right? You ask it questions. Where are you from? What are your intentions? If I let you into my thought life, if I let this feeling go on, what's it eventually going to lead me to? So guys, we need to have a healthy sense of self-awareness. Number two is this, is that we need to prioritize the health of our marriage or singleness over ministry. That, listen, mark it on your calendar. Don't just do it, mark it on your calendar. Right? Like on my calendars, what I used to do when I was in a really busy season of life, what I used to do was I used to go to my calendar and then I would find like that one day off in the week and I put X, then another day off, then I put X. And then that way, whenever somebody would come in and say, hey, listen, what are you doing this day? I'll say, I'm doing nothing this day. And they'll say, great, that's awesome. Can you? Nope. I'm doing nothing that day. I've scheduled it in that I'm doing nothing. Wait, but nope, I'm doing it's in my schedule, I'm doing nothing. And so listen, man, we've got to schedule in the time for you guys to have those date nights. You got to schedule in that time for you to prioritize those relationships. And then that leads over to the third one where, man, you've got to, not the third one, I'm sorry. Number three is this, is they understand that ministry is an overflow out of the relationship with God. Listen, you've got to prioritize your time with Jesus. I know that it's dumb, and I know it sounds silly, and I know that here in the Christian circle, we know this. But listen, there's a big difference between knowing it and living it out. Because here's the thing. If I were to ask you what your time with Jesus looks like outside of the church, I'm honestly scared of the answers that I'll find. That's how I know that even though we know this, we don't do it. And so we need to prioritize our time with Jesus. And then obviously the fourth thing is this, we need to regularly practice a work/Sabbath rhythm. We need to practice a work/Sabbath rhythm. And so, you ever notice that stress in your life kind of starts like this, like really small? But then what happens is something happens and it piles up, then even more, and then your kids start wanting your attention, and you have these events to go to, and then after that somebody cuts you off in traffic, and then somebody bumps you in the grocery store, and then somebody says just the wrong thing to you, and it's all piled up so big that when somebody just tips the scale a little bit, all of a sudden you blow up on somebody. Y'all ever had that happen before? Maybe you did it or it happened to you, and you're like, dude, what's going on? I just barely touched you. And it all overflowed. It's because they've never set up these parameters to help control and minimize the stress that they're feeling. And so what I'm saying this morning is this: if we can set up a time where we prioritize our work/Sabbath rhythm, if we can set up a time, man, where we prioritize our marriage or our singleness, if we can prioritize our time with Jesus, right? If we can control our thoughts and ask ourselves, man, what are we thinking? The anxiety that's going on, what am I feeling? If we can have those things in our life, guess what they do? The stress in our life, you can contain it, you can handle it. Because here's the thing, is that we know that a stress-free life, that's not going to happen until you get to heaven. Stress is going to happen. Even when you're retired, stress is going to happen. But here's the thing, though, is that you can handle stress as long as you got these things in your life. You can handle it as long as you set up those boundaries and those foundations in your life. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, I want us all to be healthy, emotionally healthy leaders. And so a couple of questions I want to ask you guys and leave you guys with is this. Are there any of these areas that you feel that you do really, really well in? Are there any areas that you feel like you do really, really well in, right? And then the second question is this, is which area do you feel like you struggle with the most? Or which area do you feel like you have the most opportunity for growth in? So out of those 4 areas that we named, which areas do you feel like you do really well in? And then which areas do you feel like, man, I have the most opportunity for growth in this area? And so what I want to do real quickly is this, is I just want to take just a few moments, maybe 10 minutes, and what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to pair off, if maybe even do threes if you guys need to, but I want you to ask each other that question is, hey, of these 3 areas, or those 4 areas, what's one that I do really, really well in? And then which one do you feel like I need the most growth in this area, okay? So let's do that for about 10 or 15 minutes here. Let's go ahead and break up into 2s or 3s, then at the end of that we'll have some cool discussion time together here. So Jason, if you wouldn't mind playing some fun music in the background, and then after that we can split up and do that with each other. Check, check. All right, we're going to go a couple more minutes, and then after that, we're going to go around the room and just talk about some things that that stood out to us. All right, check, check. Here we go. All right. Hey, so listen, you guys have had some lively, healthy discussions. So let's start here real quickly. What are some things that you felt like, or that you discussed, that you feel like that you do pretty well in, or maybe the person that you talked with, they do pretty well in? What are some of those things that you guys do pretty well in when it comes to those practices? Hmm?
Telling her, feel free to share. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jess.
I'll share about myself if that's okay.
Actually, can you talk to this mic?
Well, sure. I feel that I've got the singleness, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm just speaking about myself, that I've got the singleness over ministry thing going okay for me, because I haven't actually started in any ministry yet, but I am single, and I do put that in my family, before, like, I know that I need to be healthy and stuff before I come into it, and I've been working on that, working with stuff in the family, working, with my kids. I mean, for me, they've always come first. It's always Jesus, my family, the house, and everything. I've been learning how to take care of myself, because I always put myself last. That's just what you do when you're a mom and got your family and stuff to take care of, right? So yeah, I feel that I've gotten that one down. Opportunity for growth, and oh my gosh, like all the other ones, definitely the Sabbath. I feel God, just as I was sitting here talking with Cherie, I feel God calling me to the Sabbath one. I felt that since the Sunday that you guys talked about it. I learned about it when I was younger, but I've never really committed to it on a personal level. It never really clicked in me that, oh my gosh, it's a commandment. For some reason, though I grew up knowing that, it had never clicked. And I'm realizing that I'm having some issues in my life. It's a big story, so I won't get into it. But there's certain issues that I'm thinking they're probably coming from the fact that I have not committed to the Sabbath. And so I really want to change that. So I talked with my mom, because she lives with me, about it. When you got a household together, you kind of have to work together. So we're working at making it work, trying to pick our days, because sometimes things happen. But yeah, I just definitely feel called to that big time. God was just, like I said, speaking to me. I felt the Spirit just telling me right here and there about keeping up with that and getting that straight. So that was really cool. Yeah, thank you for letting me.
Somebody else want to share about, man, just some things that maybe you feel like, oh, I do really well, and maybe the one that you have the most opportunity for growth in. Anybody else want to share? Wow, hey, calm down. There's too many of you. But yeah, I'm gonna call somebody. Where we at? Oh, my wife Alyssa volunteered. Look at her. Oh,
We were just talking about this, and I was saying let me pull it up here. The second one, where it says they prioritize ministry over marriage or singleness. No, not that one. I prioritize my marriage. I love you so much, babe. The third one. They do more. My husband models that so well, and I really appreciate that. But they do more activity for God than their relationship with God can sustain. And I find myself volunteering for everything, like 90% of the time, and then just burning out and realizing that my relationship with God is suffering, but I'm doing all this stuff for him, but I'm not spending time with him like I should, and it drains me out, and so he is always good on calling me out on that. But that is definitely when I looked at him and I was like, ugh, like when you just feel like you just got to put your head down and realize you just got to start working on that. So I really loved this. This was really healthy for me just to kind of go over all of that. So
I think that's the one where a lot of good, well-meaning people struggle with. Yeah. Somebody else want to share? Maybe strengths, areas of opportunity that you guys see. Anybody else? All right.
Anywhere near the air. I don't know. I look at all of those and I think I see myself in every single one of them, which I think is healthy whenever we can see that we need to improve in all those areas. For me, Cookie, I'm talking into the mic. Okay. For me, I think it's as a single person, people think we have a lot of time, but what we're doing is the job of two. And so sometimes we can be so busy, is the grass mowed, is the car inspected, I need to work my 40 hours, blah, 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 and then we forget who we are. And then we join this ministry where we're doing a position, a job, but we're forgetting who we are in that. So I think for me, I need to look inward as to where I am so that I can serve with my whole heart. And sometimes we just get lost in singleness. So I'm struggling right there, just trying to figure out how to balance life and all I do and give 100% in the ministry that I'm called to do. Yeah.
Thanks, Dana, for sharing. Thank you. Somebody else want to share? Oh, Bonnie's reaching back. Here you go.
I guess you could say this kind of weakness for myself, and I need more strength in it, is my heart says it wants to do, but I look at I have a tendency to look at other people and say they're better than me, or that, I'm not worthy to do it, that I want to be perfectionist, and that, what if I fail? Those type of negatives, which I have been working very hard on trying to give positives, because God can't work with a negative spirit. So even with my family, I'm trying to listen more than to speak. And sometimes that's hard as a mom. We want to give good responses to our children, but sometimes they have to walk through the valley for good or bad. And so I know my heart wants to do more. It's just that I hold back because I look at other people and I think, oh, I wish I was like them, or, and so I need to work on that.
You got Jesus in your heart? You love him? You believe the word? Created in his image to do good works? You anointed? Come on, somebody. That's you. That's you. There we go. Spend time with your Heavenly Father and he'll tell you the same exact thing. So we love the fact that you're here. Yeah. Keep serving. Thank you so much for being vulnerable. Anybody else want to share just maybe some thoughts that you guys have on the past session? Yeah.
I struggled for years for the more activity for God than the relationship with God. And one of the areas that was I always did. I grew up. Family did. But I wasn't taught the one-on-one relationship with God. So when I became an adult and started in a ministry, I was in it for 20 years. And God said, I didn't put you here. I didn't call you to this place. And I had to do a lot of repenting and saying, well, God, what do you mean? Because I'm teaching, I'm in the church, I'm active. And he said, yeah, but that's not what I called you to do. And that was an eye-opening for me to realize that I'd done all this out of selfishness, or thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. But when I then had a relationship with God, he just turned me around, and so I understand what that means in that way.
Thanks, Carrie, for being vulnerable with that. That's awesome. Anybody else want to share some thoughts that you guys had on the past session? There you go. Tom, there you go.
Well, I was looking at not so much now, but in number 3 there. When you're younger and in say a smaller church, you end up wearing a lot of hats, and you just keep this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and so you put on your next hat and run out, do that, and come back. And of course you're trying to work 8 hours a day and all this, and then you try to fill in all these places. But what's the result of your time with the Lord? It goes from here to down here, and it just gets harder and harder to find time to spend with Him. And I think that's where our relationship with God is hard to maintain. I thank the Lord for CLC, because we got so many young people, young adults, spending the time in service of the Lord. Individuals wear the hats instead of one person or 5 people trying to do everything. So we're thankful for CLC and for the leadership here. Amen. You guys.
No. Carlene, you want to rebuff that? No? No rebuffing that statement? Okay. Sounds good. Anybody else? We'll do one more person. Anybody else want to share? Going once, going twice. Anybody else? Okay, awesome. So hey, listen, we're going to take a quick break here, but part of the reason why we do this is because, let me just see our schedule real quickly. Perfect. So part of the reason why we do this, guys, is because this, Pastor Joe has said this before, but God's got good things in store for this church. He's got big things in store for this church. And what's really funny is it's just been a short amount of time that we can collect this data, but it's weird. So we had 2 services. Then after that, we brought the family back together for 1 service. But since we brought the family back for 1 service, we've decreased the services, but we've increased our attendance. So, I mean, again, it's just a small sample still, but it's just crazy the way that the Lord's working. So here's part of the reason why we're doing this. It's because we're always praying, right? God, we want the next. God, we want the blessing. God, we want you to bless our church. Listen, if God blesses our church beyond what we're able to take care of, then we know that's going to come tumbling down. And so part of the reason why we do this is because we want to build you guys up. We want to build up our leadership infrastructure. We want to raise the level, the leadership lid that we have here. Because if we can get better, then everybody else gets better as well too. And if we can get better and stronger, then we can lift more weight. See, a lot of people think that, if we had a bigger church, we'd have less problems. No. You got a bigger church, you got bigger problems. Like, that's what it is. And so, but here's the thing is that if we want to be able to handle those bigger problems, we've got to be bigger leaders. And that's part of the reason why we do this. So we're so thankful for you guys here. So listen, let me go ahead and dismiss us. It's 10:06. Yeah, so why don't we come back here at 10:20, and then after that, we'll start the next session here with Sean. So go ahead and take a 14-minute break. We